Welcome back to MotorLand Aragón. It's round 5 of the FIM CEV Repsol. It's an absolute scorcher outside, and it's time for the second race for the Moto2 European Championship here today. Despite what the graphic says there, we have actually got a 16-lapper, otherwise that's the shortest race for the Moto2 European Championship in history. And you can see the 5-kilometre circuit for these riders to tackle. It's got 7 left-hand corners and 10 of which that are right. Elevation change of 50 metres does make it a very exciting roller coaster ride at this circuit. And if you didn't catch race 1, well, I'd mute your microphones mute TV sets for just a few moments. I can't mute the microphone because I've got to talk about it. But mute your television sets for just a moment, because it was an absolutely brilliant race, which saw Edgar Pons on top for the first time in the European in the European Championship for the first time since 2015 there, Fran. It really was a very exciting race. Great to see Edgar back on top, and great to see AGR on top for the first time since 2016.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, it was a bit of a tougher year for them last year, having lost defending champion Stephen Odendahl to NTS, with whom he's now moved up to the Moto2 World Championship. But yeah, it was a great race, and it was great to see Edgar Pons back on top, like you said. And it should be now, hopefully, that can give him a little bit more momentum and really kick his campaign into gear, because he's had a bit of a tougher ride of it so far this season compared to a couple of the other guys who expected to sort of be plug in and play immediate championship challenges from the start. So Raffin obviously has been the class of the field so far, but then his closest challenger, Augusto Fernandez, he was really starting to show some great pace, and took it to Raffin and Catalunya to win that second race. But now he's obviously departed and moved up to the Moto2 World Championship with the Pons HP40 team. So yeah, I always find it strange to say 40 as in the number 40, because obviously the sponsor is Los 40, the Spanish radio station. But yeah, so it's kind of great news for FIM, but it's a bit difficult for the rest of the runners, because now the guy who was really closest to him and could have really ruffled his feathers a bit more has moved out of the class. So it'll be interesting to see if Pons can use that victory that he took earlier today to really now push on, and it can be the sort of start of something a bit special in the latter half of this season. Obviously, we've got summer break coming up now, a couple of months off, so I think if Pons can do the double and show similar pace this afternoon to that which he had this morning, he'll be very, very happy going into that break. So we'll have to see how it pans out, but he was certainly uncatchable this morning.
Yeah, it certainly was, as you say there, Fran. Edgar Pons looking very, very comfortable this morning on board that AGR team Calyx. It's really been a very impressive performance from him so far this weekend. Kind of a performance that we haven't really seen from him over the course of this 2018 campaign, because he's had a bit of a mixed season so far. If you look back to what happened, of course, at Portugal last time out, last time out of this first round of the season, I should say, rather, he ended up having 2 crashes in 2 races, but it has been a very, very impressive couple of rounds for him, just sort of getting himself back on form and back where we know Edgar can fight. Let's not forget, of course, 2015 champion here, Fran, so he does have a lot of pedigree and a lot really to live up to, more than anything, coming back to this title. Yeah,
definitely. I think he's got quite a lot to prove, and now hopefully we'll see a bit more of that. But it's great to just let the viewers at home know it's very, very hot here at MotorLand, as you can see. It's also quite hot in the commentary box because they're all glass fronted. Yeah, so Tom's just taking a quick break and stood a little bit closer to the aircon, and our colleagues at Movistar next door found it very funny to see him stood at the back of the room.
It's like a greenhouse in here. That's the only way I can describe it. I feel like
it really is.
I feel like a tomato plant. I'm probably going to look like a tomato plant after the sun's finished baking us. I'll probably look like the colour of Edgar Pons' bike and leathers after this one as well.
Maybe you could put the AGR design on in sun cream and brand it on.
Fantastic. I'm sure they'd love that. I'll be riding for them next weekend.
I'm not sure about that, but, you know, step by step.
Yeah, quite. Definitely. I've got a lot to live up to before I end up on one of those bikes, that's for sure. Edgar Pons, though, 23 years of age, has now got the monkey off his back, has taken that victory for the first time, as we said, since 2015. His title-winning campaign. And what of this man here, then, Jesko Raffin? It's a lot hotter than it was here this morning, so is that going to play into the hands of Jesko Raffin? Just to give you an idea as to how much the temperature has changed since this morning, well, during the Moto2 race earlier on today, ambient temperature was quite significantly cooler than it is now. Round about 27, 28 degrees. It's now about 35, 36 degrees. Now, there's quite a wide operating window for the Moto2 machines. However, it's going to be interesting to see what sort of tyre compounds people go for, what sort of changes they're going to make in the setup, and also how they're going to deal with the heat. This man here, Hector Garzo, he's probably got a towel that's absolutely soaked in water, and, well, he's got some big fans on the grid as well.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite a challenge to stay cool. It's a bit Suzuka-esque. Obviously, the right day to be talking about that. But it's very, very hot. Cannot stress how hot it is. Not just hot for British people who don't expect it. Genuinely very hot for the region. Very hot for this time of year even. Just a few degrees above what it normally is, but it really makes a difference, and these guys are really up against it.
Well, we know how hot it is when we know when it's hot, because our colleagues who are Spanish say it's really hot. And we're like, oh, well, that means it must be hot then.
Exactly. You need to get that kind of secondary approval there, because to be honest, I'm kind of hot if it goes above 15.
Yeah, I know.
So, so you know, but yeah, when the guys in the hotel say no, it's just very, very hot, then it's like, okay, then it's not just me being a bit of a wimp then.
We just saw Lucas Tulovic on the grid. Now, he has been very impressive in the Moto2 European Championship over the last couple of seasons. Last year, of course, was with this team when they were the Forward Racing Junior team. He's now racing for Team Wimu CMS, of course, has got that link to the World Championship, has now raced in the World Championship when he substituted for the injured Domi Aegerter earlier on this season. He's had podiums in the European Championship. He's been heavily linked with either Kiefer Racing for 2019 or indeed the Tech 3 team when they switch over to KTMs for next year. But he's still eluding that first win. Still hasn't got it yet.
Yeah, he's obviously pretty young, only just turned 18. It's a pretty interesting kind of situation for him because he's shown a lot of promise, but he's not quite able to just take that one step further and really challenge at the sharp end for the win yet. But he did all right in the Moto2 World Championship when he, like you say, he was up there for a bit, replacing Dominic Egerter at Kiefer. And yeah, it was pretty impressive because obviously that was on a KTM chassis, and here he's riding the Mistral, the Tech 12 machine. So it's, you know, it's pretty impressive form. And he did say to us earlier in the season, didn't he? He doesn't genuinely think it makes that much of a difference what bike you're on at this level. It's down to the rider and making it work as best they can. So he's certainly done that a few times, and I think after a fairly solid result this morning, he'll be looking to move a bit further forward now.
Certainly will be. This man here, Mark Alcoba, he definitely moved forward in that last race. Very impressive performance from the 17-year-old. As you can see there, 5th position. Easily his best result. Only his second finish he's managed to get on the board. But whatever he's been eating for breakfast this morning has clearly been working quite well, because he's made some very, very big steps up the grid and has managed to get that Dynavolt Junior Team Calix fighting inside the top 5 for the first time this season. Yeah,
definitely. It was an impressive, some impressive pace this morning, like you said. And also some fairly impressive moves from this man this morning, but not the final one, unfortunately, that saw him just crash out of that race. So we'll have to see how that can be turned around this afternoon for him.
Yeah, Xavier Cardelouse here on the number 18. It's a new sponsorship for the Team Styler Bike outfit from Reali Seguros. And, well, unfortunately, that's Fairing taking a bit of a battering earlier on this morning when he ended up sending it down the road at turn 14. Quite a prolonged crash it was, really, as well. I say it was a crash because he held on to the motorbike for such a significant amount of time.
He tried to go full Marquez, but immediately it was quite obvious that wasn't going to really happen. So,
no.
But yeah, obviously rider okay, not too much damage to the bike, main thing. So yeah, see if we can stay on it this time and get some good points.
Alessandro Zacconi here on board the Calix. You can see there a couple of top 10 finishes in his last 2 races here in the Moto2 European Championship. A name that will be quite familiar to you if you've been watching various other championships over years gone by.
Indeed, he was the first real impression maker coming into the European Supersport class in 2016, and it was at this track actually. Him and then teammate Axel Bassani made a huge splash when they arrived, and fighting right at the front and even for the podium for a bit. So yeah, it should be interesting. I'm quite sad to see he seems to have cut his hair quite a lot. It was very blonde, curly, like the anti-Italian stereotype really when he first showed up there, but obviously a lot more streamlined now. And another man looking for a bit of a bounce back compared to this morning.
Yeah, absolutely right. Matthias Megley they always, as you just go back to the haircut as well, he's probably just trying to find a few sort of extra kilometres an hour on the start-finish straight. Every gram helps, does it not?
Well, you say that, but then you look at Chan On-Chu.
Yeah, that is true. You've got a good point. Yeah.
Chan On-Chu living the life there and having some serious pace with that long hair.
Yeah, that's very true. Maybe I don't know. Maybe where it flows in the wind, it helps his slipstream, makes him a bit more aerodynamic.
I'm not sure about that either. To be honest, I think ultimately it doesn't make a difference.
I can't believe we're having this conversation, is what I can't believe. Here is Dima Zecchi with Carmelo Morales on his right hand. How many T-shirts has Carmelo Morales got? He was doing that job for somebody else earlier on today. But Dima Zecchi there, 25 years of age, you can see there, has taken a podium in the Moto2 European Championship. That was last year. This year, though, a couple of fourth-place finishes. But the last couple of rounds in particular, the last couple of races, have been a very, very big challenge. And Carmelo Morales, royalty really here in the FIM CEV Repsol, multiple SBK champion when that was part of the bill here in the FIM CEV Repsol. So really good to see him still turning up, of course, and he just loves being around racing. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, he was the absolute king of that class, and he was the final champion in it before it was stopped. And yeah, he's great to see him still coming to the races and enjoying it, obviously, and lending a helping hand to a few people as well. Some good tips. So then Marcel Brenner, another one maybe looking to move a bit forward, like Eki. Eki certainly is a little bit sort of out of position of what you'd maybe expect. So we'll have to see what they can do this time around in this second race and see how the temperature is going to affect them all as well.
Certainly will do. As you say, this is the Polish newcomer, and he is riding with the Team Styler Bike outfit. And, well, he's got a bit of a challenging name to pronounce, shall we say, and I believe it's Peter Biasakirski. I think that's how we're going to go for it, and that's how we're going to pronounce him. So I'll go down there later and get the full SP with him. But 16 years of age is Peter, as you can see there, has had a couple of points on the board in only his first race of the season. So that is good to see for him, and actually did not a bad job at all in his first Moto2 European Championship race. Very, very, very good to see for him and just getting himself on board that bike. What about this man here then, number 12, the replacement for Augusto Fernandez. Fernandez, of course, going to the World Championship once again. The Australian, Mark Chiodo, 20 years old. You can see there 3 points rather on the board for him. On board the Suter, the only Suter on the grid here this weekend with that easy race outfit. And it's going to be interesting to see how Mark gets on, and we'll find out, I'm sure, more about his career, more about his riding prowess as the season does go on. But a new name on the grid to get used to. What about Stock 600 then as well? What about this man here, the number 67, Roman Fischer, finished second in the Stock 600 class in the first race. 15th, though, got a point on the board, 7 points so far in the championship, and let's see how he will fare. That Yamaha R6, of course, and the Stock 600 bike significantly different to the Moto2 machines that are out on the grid. Speaking of the grid, here is how they line up then. Edgar Pons, Jesko Raffin, and Hector Garzo on the front row. Row 2 is Lucas Tulovic, Tommaso Marcon, and Mikel Pons. Row 3, Marc Alcoba, Xavier Cardaluz, and Alessandro Zacconi, the Italian. Row 4, Matthias Megle, Dima Zecchi, and Marcel Brenner. Row 4, Peter Biasirski, then Mark Chiodo and Roman Fischer. Row 6 is Alessandro Zetti, Luis Pomares, and Giacomo Lorenzon. And towards the rear end of the grid, Alexander Anin, who didn't finish race 1, Chandler Cooper, and Philippe Legallo, completing the 21 riders, making their way onto the grid. What do you reckon then for this one there, Fran? Who are you placing your money on?
Definitely Legallo.
Yeah?
Yeah,
solid.
Straight through.
Whole shot the first corner, never to be seen again. Blinding.
Nah, I think, honestly, I think it will be pretty difficult for the field to catch Pons, but it should be interesting now. Like we said, I think we're maybe overselling it a little bit, but we're suffering here. It's very hot, so it's going to be interesting how that change in temperature will affect this race. But I'm not so sure. I think as well, if Raffin, obviously, last time out, well, not last time out, this morning, Raffin was able to sort of get in the way off the line. So if he can do that and then maybe rough him up a little bit more, go full kind of Laguna 2008 tactics, try and keep him back, because he knows that Pons has probably got the superior pace, so you just have to try and do what he can to stay with him or get in his way.
Good thing you mentioned about the heat there, Frank, because we haven't talked about it so far here today, and it's going to be a very interesting factor here this weekend. So over the brow of the hill going in towards turn 12. This is an absolutely beastly corner. It drops down quite a lot more than you can see on your screen past that infamous wall, which is such a favourite for photographers more than anything as well, because it produces, one, very, very good and exciting racing, and two, it produces some fantastic shots as well of the bikes cascading their way down the hill in towards turn 15 and onto that back straight where the slipstream will come into effect quite significantly. So let's wait and see what will happen going down into that those final couple of corners for that first time of asking. See a bit of a wiggle on the rear end there for the number 2. That is, of course, Jesko Raffin, your championship leader. His nearest rival in the championship is Augusto Fernandez, who is no longer racing in that in this particular championship, having made the step up to the World Championship. So it really is Jesko Raffin's championship to lose. And let's see what he's going to be able to do. But this man here, the number 57, Edgar Pons, is going to be trying to do everything he can to get himself in contention for that victory once again here this afternoon. It's been a challenging couple of seasons for Pons in the Moto2 World Championship. Made the step back to the European Championship, where, of course, he was a champion in 2015. And well, he's doing everything right at the moment to try and get himself ready for battling for that title towards the end of the season. So 21 runners and riders on the grid in the baking Spanish sunshine. Look to the top left corner of your screen. Wait for those red lights to come on. Moto2 European Championship, race number 2. Let battle commence, and it's a great start for Edgar Pons. He gets away very well indeed, as does Jesko Raffin. And going down towards the first corner, who will have the advantage? Well, this time it is Edgar Pons who has the lead. Meanwhile, third and fourth place of Hector Garzo and teammate Lucas Tulovic are battling for position. At the moment, it's still Garzo who holds on to his grid position. Everybody making their way through the first couple of corners very, very cleanly. That first sector, very important there, Fran. And Edgar Pons manages to hold on to his pole position through the first part of this lap. Yeah, definitely a bit of a nightmare for the rest of the grid. That made a big improvement on his start in race 1 and exactly where he wants to be already. And Lucas Tulovic, another who really improved on the start he'd had in race 1, where he got shuffled out wide at that first corner, and this time he's right on the back of his teammate already at this early stage. So I think Pons is probably going to be quite eager to pull the pin already, so we're going to have to see if Raffin has any answer for him now, or if it's just going to be another one-man band a little bit at the front. Well, time will tell in this occasion. It's still getting very interesting for position a little bit further back as well. You can see Mark Alcoba, Mikel Pons as well, who is absolutely no relation to Edgar Pons there. There's far too many Ponses already in racing. And you can see there that the number 70 of Alcoba goes diving down the inside of Tulovic. Tulovic says no thank you and gives it as good as he gets. Straight back up the inside through the right-hander. Coming down the hill into turns 14 and 15. Still Tulovic with the advantage. Yeah, it was nicely answered back there. Just, nope, thank you, I'll have that back, and straight back through. But I think he's going to be under attack again at the end of this straight. We'll have to see if he can hold on to that. Seemed to have got a fairly good exit out of there, though, so maybe Garzo. And Garzo as well, yeah. He's really trying to... threatening Raffin there. Yeah, signaling his intentions very, very early on in this race. Is Hector Garzo had a good amount of straight line speed in that slipstream, but had nowhere to be able to use it, unfortunately. Jesko Raffin, an absolute demon on the brakes on that Swiss Innovative Investors Calect. And down towards the first corner, you can see as well the 3 riders still battling for the top 4 positions. Here comes Alcoba sliding it down the inside, and Mikel Pons is going to try and have a bit of the action here as well. Alcoba gets the better of Lucas Tulovic in the early stages of this race, so the German rider just getting a little bit ruffled up here at the moment. Not able to try and make any particular inroads and answer back immediately, at least, on the Dynavolt Junior team rider. Yeah, this looks like it could be a good little squabble here with those 3 riders there. And also Raffin looked fairly defensive into turn 1 that time around. Definitely didn't want to let Garzo through on the inside and seemed perfectly aware of how close he was. So I think that could be interesting, but he seems to have now pulled his finger out a little bit and got close to Pons. And we've got a bike that's stricken on the circuit here, and that could be the cause for a red flag here at the moment, unless the marshals can get rid of it pretty quickly. Trying to attain where that is. That looks like it's going through Turn 4, isn't it? Yes, yeah. Just go. That's Alexander and in. So a second crash in 2 races. The Marshals running to get that bike up and off the track. There's a little bit of debris there as well. So we'll wait and see how Race Direction decide to call this one. They're trying to get the bike off the track. The problem is they haven't got a lot of time to get it all out of the way. So the bike, the main obstacle, is out of harm's way now. That's good to see, but there is still a little bit of debris we saw there on the track as well. Meanwhile, back at the front, Edgar Pons still leads the way. Comfortable advantage he has of just over half a second at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. We saw, as we were looking at that crash, it seems like Pons has just found a couple of tenths out of his pocket again and managed to maintain or maybe even stretch that gap a little bit. But Garzo is certainly hanging in there at the moment in these early stages. And it looks like we do have a red flag, I imagine, for that debris. You can see them waving that down on the pit wall here from our commentary position. So, yes, it looks like hopefully that will be because of that crash, and we saw Ryder up and okay, but obviously too much stuff on the track, and they need to make sure that's clear before the race can go through there again. Yep.
And completely the right call by Race Direction, in my opinion, because, of course, having that debris on the track can lead to so many other things. If it's just a bit of sharp debris, it could cause a puncher, it could cause a rider to run over it and go down the road in their own separate accident. You don't know as well. Also, there might be some fluids left on the circuit from that crash in particular as well. The Marshal just running off of the live circuit there. The riders, of course, just being told to slow themselves down. We did see, as Fran said, Alexander Anin just managing to get himself away. And, of course, it was the opening stages of that race as well. So once they've got everything all sorted out, what will happen is we'll have a quick restart procedure following this. Race Direction will deem whether they'll run the race at the full distance again or whether they will decide to reduce the laps just by a couple to compensate for the race having already been run, and of course the loss of time that we're going to get for this as well. So lap 2 out of 16, a red flag here in the Moto2 European Championship. And let's have a look and see if we can see what happened. Well, Alexander Anin, that's really strange because he's up towards the right-hand side of your picture. That bike has gone, well, spiralling down the track really more than anything at quite an unusual rate of knots. Yeah, definitely. That could also be an extra reason why they have red flagged it. They don't know maybe if it's dropped anything. Need to check. It's only that stuff that's really obviously visible right there at the kind of end of the incident or the final resting place of that bike in this race. But yeah, quite a strange incident. As you can see, like the rider well away from that by the time the bike came to a stop. So, but yeah, good decision. Obviously, when you don't know, it's always better. I can't tell if that's maybe a puddle of oil or something. Yeah, I was just thinking there are some fluids on the track, so that's probably why the red flag has been done. So what they'll probably do with that is sweep it all up, put some cement dust down, and then get the race back underway. If indeed that is a bit of fluid on the track, or whether it was. I think it looks like it to me. Obviously, we can't tell, but I think it looks like it to me. It looks very, very shiny, and I can't really think of anything else that may have come off the bike that would have been that reflective. Specific, wasn't it? Too small to be a heat haze or anything like that. So well, let's just wait and see what happens from Race Direction there. You can see the red flag just waving in the wind here at Aragon. It's particularly not that windy as well. He's also getting a bit of cover from the sunshine as well. That's good. Yeah, that's just in front of our commentary box. I just saw a bit of salvation there coming for that Marshal. Obviously, it's pretty hot down there, and when you just got to stand there, wave that flag. Oh, is that Dimaseki that's gone down as well? That might be why there, Fran, because we've got another. Must have been, yes. Then a shared incident. So we didn't see that initially. So Dimaseki has obviously had his own crash here, or potentially got involved in something there. I'm just trying to see where that is. That looks about the same sort of place. So it could have been fluid that went down. He could have gone down on it. He could have been involved in the same incident. We didn't see. We only saw the back end of that crash, so probably best to not speculate. But from what we saw on that replay, it didn't look like there were 2 bikes involved. But we'll keep you up to date with anything that we do indeed receive. But all of these riders, of course, now back in pit lane. Here's Edgar Pons, of course, just having a chat with his crew chief on the right-hand side of your shot, trying to find out what they're going to be doing. Well, they can't make any changes to the bike, of course, because the main thing is they don't know when we're going to be going green again. So it's a bit risky to try and pull the suspension out and say, oh, here you go, lads, do us a favour, alter this for us. And then, oh, pit lane opens in 2 minutes or something like that. Is that how Edgar Pons talks? I'm sure he does, yeah. With a very strong southern British accent, I've heard. No, it's it's true. Obviously, at the moment, we're not sure when we're going to get restarted, and we're not sure exactly what the situation is with that possible fluid on the track there that we saw, and then with the Eki incident as well. But both riders look perfectly fine, so that's the main thing. Yeah, and you can see they're just tending to... There also was a bit of fluid on track, as we said there, Fran, so they're just going to cover that up and put get a flannel. Get a bit of flannel, bit of cement dust. You can see there as well, just, complete dirt, so it is a bit of oil, obviously, that's been spilt on the circuit there, and of course, you're just going to get the Race Direction and the track marshals just to have a bit of a check, see if it's any further up the circuit.
Yeah, obviously, like I said, the bike slid such a long way. It's always important to check that it's not just where it is there. But obviously, this is quite a common thing that happens when you have a blown engine and the like. You can get a real stream of oil right where obviously it takes a minute as well for the rider to get off the track and off the racing line quite often, which can be a bit of a nightmare. But we'll have to see. Obviously, you can see the officials there just checking how far that trail goes and whether that is still fluid or something different. It's very hard to tell from this angle with both the haze and obviously the distance we are away from it. But hopefully we'll not be waiting too long to get back underway. And at least, like we said, rider's okay, so it's just a bit of a waiting game, at least, no stress.
Absolutely, yep. Time will tell on this occasion as to how things work out. You can see the fans watching on, bit of a break in proceedings as well. I tell you what, some of them in long trousers and jeans and the like, they must be absolutely roasting up there.
Honestly, I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, I am in long trousers, but also that's because I have to like go to Parc Fermé and, you know, not look like I'm too much of a tourist. But oh, so hot out there. But at least those guys in the other end of this long, incredible pit building that we have here in Aragon. And yeah, at least a bit of shade for those guys down there. And that should be right next to the cafe as well, so they can get a nice drink and wait for all this to blow over.
Well, you can see the Dynavolt Junior team just watching on and just having a few chats to try and see where they're going to be going and what they're going to be changing. Just having a debrief. They're going to be speaking English. We have a little bit of a listen. Okay, I came in right at just as they finished that. Great timing as ever there from myself. So
definitely the last part of it was and go.
Yes, I heard that.
So we know the most important part of the plan.
Well, here's Dean Basecki walking away with a bit of help from one of the marshals, or somebody trackside by the looks of things. And there is Eki. Unfortunately, his day ending in the sand. And as we said, the main thing is that he is up and okay following what was probably a very fast crash going into turn 5. It's not a slow place to crash. And you can see that Calix looking very, very second-hand as well at the moment. And of course, just having a look on race direction just to see whether there's any notice. Nothing so far about a restart. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Matthias Megle there. Just having a bit of air blown onto him. There you go. There we are. Lovely.
That's such a good idea. I wish we could get one of those.
What, a boy blowing compressed air?
Well, you know, it looks like a bit more refreshing than the aircon, because the aircon, unfortunately, is a little bit too far away from us, yeah. Unless we stand at the back of the room. But, yeah, oh, wow, it seems like there's a lot of dust going down on there, really putting in a lot of effort to sort this out, and it looks like it stretches quite a long way up there as well.
So maybe, well, we didn't see what happened with Alexander and Inden, but it could have been something involving Eki before that crash, or it could have potentially blown up and lost a bit of oil and crashed on his own oil. We've seen that happen in years gone by as well. Again, we're just speculating at the moment because we don't know the true cause of what's happened. We've only seen the back end of those incidents, so we're just sort of, as we said, throwing some ideas out there as to what could have happened. As we said, the main thing is that they're both up and okay. You can see here Tommaso Marcon, Tommy on the number 10. That speed up, bright green as well. You certainly can't miss them, can you?
Very green. Like, I'm slightly squinting at the screen. Even in this incredible weather and the sunshine we have right behind the TV, I'm still squinting at our screen with that. That is very green. But, yeah, obviously it's been a pretty good weekend. And I think always the red flag, obviously, when it's something like this and there's no real worry about anybody and it's just kind of trying to get it sorted as quickly as possible, but it's something more, you know, it's just work to be done and time to be waited out. Not too much stress about it, but then obviously everyone's got to do the start again, and you've got to go through all of that, and Pons has got to try and replicate that great start he had. Rafinha knows now he's got another chance to do that. There is a lot of things to think about as a rider, and a lot of stress, and it's a challenge in itself to just stay calm and try and reset and just take it from zero again. So we have got confirmation it will be the quick start procedure. Terribly sorry, I'm getting too overexcited by the leaf blower. But a quick restart procedure, pit lane open will be confirmed, but it will be a 10-lap race now. So down from the original distance of 16 and up from the wrong graphic that said 0 right at the start of the race.
Absolutely. So 10-lap race then, quick restart procedure. Pit lane will be opened at some point in the future, and you can...
very, very specific.
Absolutely. I like to be nice and specific. You can see here the easy race boxed in there, the Australian rider, Mark Chiodo, who has replaced the outgoing Spaniard of Augusto Fernandez. We just saw, of course, the activity happening there on track. You can just see the European Talent Cup guys just getting their bikes ready and in place as well, because, of course, the European Talent Cup Race 2 is going to be on the way after this one, after the race, of course, been restarted, run to its distance. I see Dennis on Chew down there as well, and not entirely sure what he's doing. Not being very helpful by the looks of things.
That's getting involved in the mini IO projects there a little bit. But yeah, it should be interesting now. We've got a 10-lapper, obviously with the incredible heat that we've not mentioned at all so far. That could play into it quite a bit, because there's an awful lot less distance now to go on those tyres. And yeah, even just for the riders, 10-lap sprint, it's a very different proposition to the idea of doing 16 laps and all the tactics and the tyre life and everything that that can entail. So it should be an interesting one. So here we have the graphics. Let's see if we get a pit lane open time yet or not.
Ooh, let's have a look at our TBA. Yep, still the same information as we have on our timing screens then. So 10 laps for this race. As you said, it's going to be interesting that as well, because it might prompt a few riders to do a bit of setup changing, because of course we don't know when the pit lane is going to be opening. Looks like it won't be opening within the next 5 or so minutes, and they might just make a couple of little changes. They had a bit of time just to get themselves acquainted. You can just see the Reali Vintage team, as I was going to call them, the Team Styler bike outfit technically now, with sponsorship from Reali Seguros, just topping up the bikes, putting a bit more fuel in them, and shining up the machines, making a couple of small adjustments, I'm sure, as they get ready to get this race back underway. The sunshine here at Aragon bathing the circuit, the activity down there in pit lane as well. And how many men does it take to warm up a European Talent Cup Honda? Well, you can see there's about 7 or 8 down there.
Indeed, they're definitely giving it everything, aren't they, down there? But they're the... yeah, I think it's even hard to see with the heat. It's so bright outside the shadows and the light, and then it's hard to see even who's who. But obviously they're trying to get ready for their race, and then the Moto2 guys will be sort of a bit itchier and ready to get racing again. But I think it's part of the great part of the CV. There's all these guys so close together. So like we saw Dennis Onchi there taking an interest in the Junior IO Academy bikes of the ETC. And then it's, you know, it's great to see as well the Moto2 guys, veterans like Rafine in amongst these. But obviously these guys don't look so thrilled with it. Obviously just want to get racing again, I think.
It's probably going to cool them down, to be honest with you, isn't it, really? Because of that wind that's going to be hitting them at quite a significant rate of knots. And you can see here inside the H43 Team Nobby box, Marcel Brenner just sort of waiting to get going more than anything. He'd like to be getting back out on track. And the Swiss rider, it won't be too long, I'm sure. There, Marcel, you can just hold on for a few more moments. Still quite a bit of activity, though, happening out on track. Original grid positions, we have had confirmation of when the pit lane will open at 14:22 local time. So that's just 5 minutes to go, in fact, dead on nearly until the pit lane will open. And then we'll have that 10-lap race. Original grid positions as well, so it does mean it'll give another opportunity for Jesko Rafine to make a better start on board that Swiss Innovative Investors Kalex, and also to not be so defensive in the first couple of laps or so, because he really did look like he was on the back foot for a time there, did Jesko Rafine. Things perhaps not working out quite as well as he would have wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's the big thing that he's going to be hoping to nail a bit better this time around, is that start. Obviously, that's what he did in the first race, and then Pons was able to get past fairly quickly. But if he really wants to win this race, it could be a very, very important thing to just get ahead of that Pons. I was going to say that Pons bike. Obviously, technically, it is a Pons bike. It has a Pons on it, but not in the traditional sense. Be very important to try and get the jump at the start, and yeah, try and defend that lead and just get in Pons' way and try and upset that rhythm, which seems, from what we saw in that first couple of laps of that race and this morning, it seems to be much superior to that of those around him.
Well, let's wait and see what will happen then here at MotorLand Aragon. It is going to be a very exciting race, I'm sure, this European Talent Cup, the Moto2 European Championship, rather, I should say. You can see there the grid indicators on the grid down there on the start-finish straight.
They're literally the furthest 2 classes apart.
I know. Thanks for that.
It's the least confusing it should be.
They share similar names in that they've got European in the title, Fran.
Definitely. I'm terribly sorry. I couldn't let that go. But it's better than me. I keep wanting to say Jeremy Alcoba.
Oh, I do that.
Well.
I've done that about 15 times now.
This is a challenge, definitely. It's one of those. It's like when you have sponsors that change as well, and it's very, very challenging. Like for ages after it switched, you write Pata Honda and then delete 5 letters and then write Yamaha. Things like this. Just certain brands and things go together. It'd be like if it changed to Repsol Yamaha. It just doesn't trip off the tongue.
It certainly doesn't. No, you're quite right.
But yeah, so we'll try and definitely not call him Jeremy.
So you're going to have fun next year with all the sponsor changes in MotoGP as well.
It's going to be great and not at all challenging.
A good amount of sarcasm there. I quite like it. You can see Chandler Cooper, the Australian rider. It's been a tough old couple of years for Chandler Cooper, hasn't it? In the Moto2 European Championship. He's had a real tricky time adapting to, well, the Moto3 bike last year and, of course, the Stock 600 bike. And let's see how he's going to get on this year. Has had, again, a really, really challenging time just trying to get himself adapted to that Stock 600 machine. And it has been a bit of an uphill struggle in some senses for the young Australian.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, he's not been racing very long at all and just trying to make some good headway there. But there's been flashes of some definitely very promising progress. But definitely you want to make a little bit more. And obviously it's a bit tough as well going Australia, Spain.
Yeah, it's not like
big commitment, definitely. So
it's not like for us where we sort of hop to Spain, then when we go home for a bit, go back to the UK, and it's a couple of hours. It's like it's quite a long round trip.
Or if you fly by certain airlines, it's a couple of hours.
A couple of days, really.
Waiting, and then a couple of more hours, and then maybe a couple more hours. I had quite an interesting journey to get to the track this weekend. I'm not bitter about it at all, as you can tell. But I did make it here, so it's okay.
I'm glad you did, Varane, because I didn't fancy doing this on my own, to be honest with you. But I tell you what, speaking of that as well, we've all got our own stories and shock horror stories. I had a flight that was cancelled the other day in particular, just going off on a topic for a time being. And it was scheduled for the Monday. We'll come back to that in a minute, actually, because they're going to show us some highlights of the race so far. So the start of this Moto2 European Championship, you can see Edgar Pons leading the way. And this was actually race 1 earlier on this morning, I apologise. And this was Jesker Raffin leading the way into the first corner. And it was set to really be a duel for victory between Edgar Pons and Jesker Raffin in the opening stages of that race. Very, very good stuff indeed for Jesker Raffin. You can see there as well, Hector Garzo was fighting in and amongst the mix there as well as Mark Alcoba. The top 4 looking pretty close in the opening stages, but not before Edgar Pons set about getting himself out in front. And he was absolutely untouchable. A brilliant, brilliant performance from Edgar Pons. Once he was out in front, as we say, there was no catching him in any way, shape or form, despite the best efforts of the Swiss Jesker Raffin. He did everything he needed to do, though, to try and continue his lead in the championship. And going down as well, this was a good little battle between Mikel Pons and the number 18 of Xavier Cardelus. They went side by side for a time being. Cardelus looking actually in good form in these mid-stages of the race, but would he be able to keep it until the very end? Well, we got an answer for that a few laps later, unfortunately, with Cardelus having what was described as a very, very tough time in the mid-stage. He got ruffled up once again by Mikel Pons, and unfortunately ended up falling backwards as well, and that unfortunately sealed his fate really in the race. Tommaso Marcon getting past him very shortly after, and then going down in towards the right-hander of turn 14. He lost the front head, tried to save it on his elbow, but frighteningly came back onto the racing line. Everybody managing to just about avoid him, and he unfortunately ended up finishing outside of the points-paying positions. Edgar Pons, rather, I should say, the race leader, doing an absolutely brilliant job to continue that advantage. Very good stuff from the number 57. And he was absolutely untouchable, as we said, to take his first win since the 2015 season here in the Moto2 European Championship. After a couple of years out in the World Championship, Jesker Raffin coming home a comfortable second. Brilliant performance from those guys. A top 3 to remember here in the Moto2 European Championship. And you can see that Edgar as well being congratulated by his AGR team. Good to see him back on the top step and smiling once again. And being congratulated by his girlfriend down there as well. Also on the podium was Hector Garzo. And the trophies being presented on the podium earlier on this morning. Edgar Pons taking a well-deserved 25 points. And spraying the champagne off the podium as well. Very, very good racing from all involved. Important performance. A very impressive performance, and now we look at Edgar Pons, now back out on track after pit lane is open. Pit lane is now closed, as a matter of fact, and a 10-lap race then set for these Moto2 European Championship riders here, Fran.
Yeah, it's a bit of an easier prospect for these guys to all get out within 60 seconds. There's a few less of them. Obviously, I don't know if anyone remembers, we had that rather funny drama a few years ago at Mugello when quite a lot of the field did not, in fact, manage to make it out within 60 seconds. And it was so many of them that they just did it again because they didn't have a choice. So obviously, normally that would be a penalty and you can't then leave pit lane. But in that case, just too many people just weren't able to get out in time, or maybe didn't realise the quick restart procedure when it was quite a new thing. But these guys all back out and lining up again. And you can see one mechanic at each of those grid spots waiting for them. So shouldn't be too long now, and we will have some more racing.
Yep, they're just going to have one mechanic on the grid just to make sure everything's all right with the bike. They're all okay and happy. And you can see, well, Edgar Pons, his mechanic, not sticking around for too long in any way, shape or form.
Definitely, he's straight back into race mode there. And yeah, just needs to do exactly what he did first time around again now. But obviously, according to the rules, the first race now officially never happened.
Yep,
so
this wasn't even a qualifying race, was it, that one?
Yeah, literally. So yeah, literally as though that never happened, we're now going to get racing again. And yeah, Pons will completely...
Ah, hang on a minute. We've got a problem here for Marcel Brenner on the grid, Fran.
Seem to indeed. Got some yellow flags there. And, oh, looks like he's going to have
No, I apologise. It's actually the Polish newcomer, unfortunately, Sikierski. So he, unfortunately, will not be making the grid. He'll have to start from pit lane at the best of this one. Whether he's stalled on the grid or not, I'm not too sure. We're also going to be a couple of riders down. We won't be having Alexander Anin on the grid. And we won't be having... the number 20 of Dimazeki on the grid either. So we are now down, reduced to what I believe is 1, 2, now 3 riders who won't be starting. So we'll be down to an 18-rider field. So if you stay on the bike, there's a good chance you could be getting some points here this afternoon, if nothing else.
Yeah, definitely. Could be a pretty good opportunity for a few of those guys, especially on the stock machines at the back. So yeah, should be an interesting one in terms of that. But obviously a bit of bad luck for those who can't restart. And we can see we've just gone through that area where there was that stuff down on the track, and all looks okay and clear now. So good news, and we can now hopefully have another Moto2 race.
That would be the best thing for us, I think, here in the commentary box. And for these guys out on track, and for you at home, of course, watching wherever you are as well. So, the first race then, well, it was an interesting one for the short period of time that it happened. I'm talking about the first race of this, the first running of this second race. Let's make it a bit less confusing and word it like that. Edgar Pons got the jump into the first corner from pole position. Will he be able to repeat it, though, in this second running of this race? Well, time will tell, of course, and we'll find out in just a few moments' time. But, of course, if Jeske Raffin is able to get the jump down to the first corner, it could change the complexion, at least in the opening stages of this one, and make it a very, very exciting battle indeed here in the Moto2 European Championship. What about Hector Garzo as well on that Team Wimu CMS? He starts on the inside of the front row, but of course from third position on the grid, so he's a few feet back compared to the pole setter. But it could be, if he gets a good launch away from the line, that he is in contention. And Lukas Tulovic as well, though Tulovic actually in the first running of that race did look a little bit on the back foot, it must be said.
Yeah, definitely. I think he'll hopefully be looking for moving forward a little bit there. But like you said, Garzo, obviously he's in the best position in some ways, but like you say, a little bit further off that pole position. So it just depends. If the two guys ahead of him don't get quite the same start, then he could be a real threat on that inside line and into turn one. But we've seen Pons at least taking first or second on both the starts they've done so far, and the same with Raffin. It's 50-50 at the moment. So let's see if Garzo can get up in the mix, but I wouldn't really bet against Pons now.
No, I certainly wouldn't do. If you've got the smart money and you've got a cheeky wager on Edgar Pons, then I'd say that is pretty much as good as it's going to get, unless Jeske Raffin can pull something out of his toolkit towards the end of this race. Let's see what will happen going down towards that first corner. So 18 riders then on the grid. 19 hopefully will start this race if we do indeed get Sikierski making his way from pit lane. So the revs rise then, or they will be in just a few moments' time. Look to the top left corner of your screen. Wait for those red lights to come on then. Race 2 of the Moto2 European Championship is underway, and it's a good start once again for Edgar Pons. But did Raffin get away well? Yes, indeed he did. But going down towards the first corner, will he have the room to move and manoeuvre up the inside? No, he won't. And look also at Lukas Tulovic going all the way around the outside of his teammate. Tulovic is trying to find his way up into third position, but I think actually Hector Garzo just managed to hold on as they come through the right-hander of turn number 4. Let's see if we can count them through. No, Tulovic is indeed ahead. So good start there for the German rider, ahead of his teammate of the number 14 of Hector Garzo. So a very good start there, but Edgar Pons once again holding on to that lead. But the crucial thing there, Fran, Tulovic up into 3rd position.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's all when we can see Garzo striking back pretty quickly there. These guys don't want to have a fight too much because they need to really concentrate on those ahead of them. But I think that was pretty brave from Tulovic, given this morning, obviously, we saw in race 1, he really suffered a lot when he went for that outside line and got shuffled out almost into the runoff. So pretty brave to hang it out around there and made it work for him. But Garzo now has managed to attack, I think, and hold on to that. Yep, just about. So it's, you know, it's difficult when Pons gets that start again. Like, the field have to find something for him, and they have to find it early before he's able to use that pace to pull out that gap.
Speaking of shuffling out as well, Mark Alcoba did an absolutely brilliant move on Alessandro Zacconi, going through the second part of the reverse corkscrew. Managed to find his way aggressively up the inside, forcing Pons to, it was Marco Cobra on Pons rather, I should say, and Pons actually losing that position there, and now also coming under some pressure from Zacconi behind as well. So that's going to be very interesting as that snake sneaks on down then to the final couple of corners on this. Oh, and Tulovic has gone down. Lucas Tulovic has crashed out on the opening lap. Oh, a shame for the German rider who looked so promising, and unfortunately we've just seen that a few too many times really in his career so far, and he is absolutely apoplectic with that, going down into the right-hander. And it wasn't actually well, that was very strange. It looked like it was a technical issue more than anything there, Fran, that happened, because he sat the bike up and then it just kicked him off.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange crash there. I don't know if he'd just gone in a little bit too hot and then maybe overcompensated a little bit when he was trying to avoid that gravel. But not sure. We'll try and find out later, but that's a shame, because obviously he was looking fairly racy in the early stages and certainly got a better launch off the line than he had in the first running of this race, or indeed in race 1 itself earlier this morning. So bit of a shame for him, but he is fairly young compared to those around him as well that he's racing. He's got a bit more time to maybe learn from a few of those errors, but there's definitely been maybe a few too many so far this season. So just needs to hopefully come back a bit stronger in a couple of months and show that pace he had in the first couple of races. Yeah,
I've every faith he will do as well, Lucas Tulovic. He's a very fast young rider, but just needs to have a bit more luck and a little bit more consistency on his side. And I think he's very modest as well, so he'd probably admit that himself. So you can see the top 3 having broken away really from the rest of the field. Mark Alcoba now in a net 4th position, which will be an absolutely brilliant result for him if he's able to finish there. Hector Garzo, though, going to be trying to go for 2nd place here as well. Jesko Raffin still looking a little bit on the back foot here, Fran, on lap 2 out of 10. So no way through for him at the moment, but Raffin just, again, riding a little bit too defensively in these opening stages. Just doesn't seem to have the confidence or the pace or whatever it may be to try and close up on the back of Pons.
Yeah, he certainly doesn't seem to be able to stay with him on raw pace, but he also doesn't seem too willing to really try and throw everything at it and get ahead of him and really take that risk to take the lead and try and defend it. Obviously, Pons has shown already once today, if he gets in that rhythm, he can pound round those laps and then get to the flag perfectly fine. Pressure doesn't seem to be an issue. He can take that win that way without really, you know, it looking that difficult. Obviously, it's very tough to race around MotorLand Aragón for even 10 laps, but he made it look pretty effortless this morning, and the field just have to really get ahead of him and make his life more difficult, because otherwise it's just going to be a replay of this morning and another few points that he takes out of the lead of Raffin in the championship. So obviously Raffin has quite an advantage, so he knows that already, so he doesn't have to take that risk, but you'd hope this early in the season that he'd race to win, really.
Absolutely, and it will be interesting to see how the rest of this season pans out in the Moto2 European Championship. So let's have a look and see what will happen over the course of this one then. So 7 laps remaining. You can see here Mikel Pons is right all over the rear fairing of the number 70 of Mark Alcoba. So Mikel Pons actually having come really from sort of nowhere more than anything over the last couple of rounds. He's really come on song on board that Kalex machine. Seems to be working very well here at MotorLand Aragón. And as you can see, that Dynavolt Intact bike in front is really going to be on the back foot. And perhaps going in towards turn 12, we might see a bit of a sneaky move being made here by Mikel Pons. Goes for the wider line going into that corner, so not opting to send it up the inside as we've seen so often. But the thing is as well with Pons is he's going to have quite a good amount of time here to be able to make a move if he can just keep himself on the back of Alcoba here.
Yeah, definitely. With the battles like this, sometimes patience can really pay off. And as well, obviously, you know, you can pressure the guy in front of you into maybe making an error. But we'll have to see if he's going to really try and strike soon and get past, if he thinks he's got the pace to then pull away. But so far from what we've seen in pretty much all the sessions of the weekend, the front three now and Tulovic to an extent had better pace than these guys. So they kind of knew they'd be fighting it out, you know, just off that podium battle. But fourth would be pretty good for both of them. So there's quite a lot on the table for those guys. But Alcoba just seems to have pulled out a little bit since they were really, really close together earlier on around that lap.
So down in towards that first corner there, these guys battling for position. And you can see as well back at Tommaso Marcon, despite his good qualifying actually so far this weekend, has not really been able to put that to good use at all on board that Team Chiatti speed up things. Having not gone his way so far at all this weekend, he's just sort of had a bit of a backward spiral as the races have gone underway. It was the same story in race 1. It's exactly the same here in race 2 as well, and perhaps just needing to work a bit more on race pace consistency, do we think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so many different aspects that go into sort of winning and being competitive. There's always something to improve, whoever you are. But yeah, consistently, definitely, it's an important thing, certainly if you want to be winning. So definitely something to work on, I think. But so far, the consistency in this race is again with Edgar Pons. And already now sort of half a second clear, if not maybe a little bit more. Not too much, maybe. Raffine just hanging in there. But the two of them have already pulled out quite a gap on Garzo. So yeah, obviously lap 4 of 10, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish this time round. So we'll have to see if that can change anything and whether that gives Raffine that extra little push.
Well, let's see what will happen then. Keep an eye on the lap times over the next few or so. Of course, this race being a little bit shorter as well is going to just make it a little bit interesting in terms of tyre wear, because, of course, one of the factors in Moto2 where they're pushing the bike so hard, and that, unfortunately, is Mark Chiodo on board the Easy Race Suter, who will go no further than lap 4 out of 10 here this afternoon. So a shame for the Aussie. A big way to end his day. We didn't quite see what happened, and I can't quite tell where that is at the moment, but unfortunately, his race has come to an end. The green flag is now out, so that's 2 riders, means it's reduced down to a field of 17. So, as we said, as long as you stay on the bike, you could be in for some good contention of points finishes. And as I was just saying before I interrupted myself, tyre wear is going to be a very key factor in this race, or it will not be a key factor, I should say, rather. It would have been a key factor if the race had been a bit longer, but of course now it's a bit shorter. These guys can really sort of go, I was going to use an expression actually I probably won't use on the television broadcast. They can go absolutely flat to the floor, as the expression goes, and really go absolutely full on, trying to just push as hard as they can to the end of the race.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of become more of a sprint rather than the tactics it probably would have been over 16 laps. But so far, though, I'm quite impressed. Raffine's really staying on the back of Pons, so we'll have to see if maybe the 10-lap sprint is a little bit of an incentive to enable him to stick with him and just throw a bit more at it.
So here is Hector Garzo then. You can see the fast Spaniard, again, could be on course for another podium finish here this afternoon. Having a bit of a lonely race, though. Doesn't seem to be able to match the pace of Raffine or Pons in front, but is, again, quicker than Alcoba behind. So he's sort of in the middle, really, with his pace in this one so far. His lap time last time around, Hector Garzo, was a 1:56 flat. In comparison to the riders in front of him, Jeske Raffine, a 1:54.9, a 1:55 flat for Edgar Pons. So he is just a little bit slow. I say a little bit slower, quite significantly slower, really. About a second or so off the pace is Garzo. So whether that's down to setup, whether it's down to riding ability or the like, but he's comfortably faster than the riders behind him, but he's not quick enough to attack the riders in front of him. Yeah,
definitely. In a bit of kind of no man's land, or Garzo's land, out there with a pretty unique pace. But like you say, quite a chunk off the 2 guys ahead of him, but those behind it seem to really be able to stay with him. Although Marcon last time around was in the 1:55s at least, but everyone else back there is in the 56s. So yeah, I think Garzo, if he can keep it on the road, it's a pretty solid podium, that. But he's probably a little bit frustrated that he just wasn't able to take a nibble out of those 2 ahead. So now we've got Marcon using that pace, has got past Zacconi as well into 6th. So it's a pretty tight battle back there in the sort of mid-top 10. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out, and Cardalus in that as well. A little bit ragged there on the edge of that group. But he'll definitely be wanting to finish this race after what happened this morning and just make sure he gets another solid stack of points on the board. But at the moment, Alcoba really holding strong in that fourth. Really, really impressive performance from him.
Absolutely, yeah. Really good to see for him at the moment, as you say there, Fran. And Xavier Cardelus as well. I don't know why, but I was expecting a little bit more from Cardelus this season. He had some good flashes of speed in 2017, but just hasn't been able to kick on in any way, sort of shape or form. He's fighting inside the top 6, which is very good, but given he's had World Championship experience, he's made some wildcards there, he's had a lot more experience than perhaps some others around him on board these bikes. The likes of Marcon and Zetti, for example, were not in this, sorry, Zacconi rather, were not in this championship this time last year. So it just doesn't seem to, whether it's the pace, whether it's the bike or anything along the lines of that, but I expected him to be fighting proper consistently at the front.
Yeah, I think same for me. And he seemed to be, until that rather short-lived expedition at the front of the field in Estoril, obviously when the conditions were a bit mixed, and it's quite a dramatic early end to the race there.
Certainly was.
But straight over the fence for the bike, and not even made it around the first corner there. But yeah, I think it's the CV he has of late in terms of the opportunities that he's had is very, very impressive, and the results that he's managed to take aren't really what you'd expect from someone who's had those opportunities of late. So you really just need to kind of show that, like you said, big flashes of pace last season, and needs to just get back up there and challenge a little bit more consistently and a little bit further forward, I think, because yeah, the likes of Zacconi, new to the class, should really be someone that Cardelus can pass and leave behind.
And of course, if you think about that bike, it fought for the title last year as well with Ricky Cardelus. So we know that bike is a proven race winner. We know that team can win races, so it's not exactly like you could put the blame in any particular corner at the moment. So it does make it just that little bit interesting, doesn't it? Meanwhile, back at the front, speaking of winning races, Edgar Pons doing exactly what he needs to do. Jeske Raffin just not having an answer at all to the Spaniard. So it's Spaniard versus Swiss at the moment, down in towards the reverse corkscrew. And this is where, of course, that track drops away. As we mentioned earlier on in the Moto3 race, you can't see the track dropping away there when you're behind the bike. You just sort of have to pick your breaking point. Obviously, these riders having ridden many laps around here on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and of course today as well, they'll know exactly where they're going to be braking. However, if it's your first time around here, trying to find that braking marker can be a little bit interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously not quite as dramatic as Laguna, but it's still a sizable, I keep saying altitude, which just makes it sound so extreme. Like they're actually skydiving onto another bike and then carrying on. But no, yeah, it is like, obviously it's one of those parts on the track where you need a little bit of blind faith, or in these guys' cases, yeah, very well practiced faith. They know exactly what they're doing. They know what to look for everywhere, each braking marker, everything. Whereas obviously if you go around there for the first time, even when you're walking, it just seems to suddenly appear. It's like, wow, okay, yep, it really is a lot steeper than it looks.
Speaking of faith as well, Edgar Pons has got a lot of faith in the front end of that Calyx, because he's really pushing that bike very, very hard in the latter stages of this race. 3 laps to go. Let's have a look at the gap then. It was 16th of a second last time around. What's it now over the line? Stays at a stagnant lap times. Edgar Pons just 700ths of a second, sorry, 700ths of a tenth of a, yeah, 700ths of a second, that was right first time. Quicker than Jeske Raffin last time around. This battle getting pretty tasty as well. Mikel Pons versus Tommaso Marcon. This is for 5th position in this race. Marcon now on the back foot, just behind Mikel Pons. So this is a nice little duel for position between the two riders. Speed up versus Calyx, Calyx versus speed up, whichever way you want to look at it. At the moment, it is the Calyx ahead of the speed up, and as they flick it into the ever-tightening end to this first sector before the track begins to open up ever so slightly, it does give you an idea as to the difference in agility that the bikes have. And here comes Tommaso Marcon trying to dip a wheel down the inside into the right-hander. Does he make the move stick? It was a very late lunge, but he managed to find his way through up the inside. That was a nice bit of riding there. He taps on his rear fairing and just says to Mikel Pons there, "Follow me, son." Probably not quite like that, but he says, "Follow me," and we can just catch the guys in front. And of course, the rider they're trying to catch in front is Mark Alcoba on the Dynavolt Junior team Calyx.
Yeah, obviously you must think he's got superior pace there to just tap that seat unit and hopefully try and encourage a little bit of cooperation at this stage. But I think we see that move mostly from Aron Canet, of all people, in the Moto3 World Championship. Even when he was a rookie and he moved up, he'd still always do that. And it's always leads to the question, mate, do you think everyone's going to listen to you when you just turned up? But, you know, he's very, very fast, obviously, Canet, and obviously quite often it's also a good idea to follow him. So we'll have to see how this plays out. I'm not sure if they're really going to have the pace to pull down that gap to Alcoba, because it's relatively sizable and there's only 3 laps left, obviously 2 after this one. So time is ticking down a little bit, and I think it might be a little bit too optimistic, that.
Absolutely. Well, flicking it into the left-hander, which does follow there. Slightly wide there for Tommaso Marcon. Is that going to compromise his drive onto the start-finish straight? Well, he actually gets a very good exit out of there. So his Calyx working very well on corner exit, and by the looks of things, corner entry not looking too badly either. I have to say, one of the very interesting things between watching these two riders, between Tommaso Marcon and watching Mikel Pons, as we just go away from them for a few moments, is the difference in riding style between them. If you look at Tommaso Marcon, the way he's tipping it into the corners, he's very much using his upper body to get the bike turned in the early stages, whereas you can see just behind him, Mikel Pons there, forcing that bike, really sort of making the bike work a little bit more than Marcon at the moment. So let's just see if we can get a bit of a comparison, perhaps going into the reverse corkscrew in a few moments' time. I'm sure we'll catch up with that battle before the end of the race, and we can just get a real sort of difference of an idea as to what they like under braking. Of course, going down into this reverse corkscrew as well, you want to get your backside off to the right-hand side of the bike, lift up from under the bubble, get the bike nice and early turned in. Have faith that that front end really is going to be sticking more than anything as well. So flicking it into the left-hander, look at how much as well the difference in leaning off. Very much a lower body style for Mikel Pons there. He's got his backside fully off of that seat, whereas Tommaso Marcon, just a difference in riding style, more of an upper body sort of exertion that he's using on board that bike. And you can see as well the foot off the outside peg there for Mikel Pons. It really does make it interesting, but clearly two riding styles that are working very, very well for both of them.
Yeah, I always think it's great to see different riding styles, especially next to each other on track. It's always great. I think one of the best examples of that recently was when Lorenzo Marquez had a few really, really close duels, especially in 2013, fighting for that World Championship in MotoGP, and just completely different, you know. The wild kind of sliding style of Marquez, although not quite the full stoner. And then Lorenzo absolutely in line, complete perfection, like Swan Lake on a Yamaha at the time, as it was. And it's always a spectacular thing to see. But in the CV, there's not so much difference. I think Tulovic is one of the most spectacular to watch. Really, really hangs off the bike, and incredible to see. But I think Raffin always looks very in control, and he also seems to have just started to really push towards trying to pull down that lead of Pons. We are on the last lap, obviously. Maybe he's got something left in the locker. Yeah,
I think it's going to be a little bit too little too late here, but I'm happy to try and be surprised. You can see there, Jesko Raffin, fastest lap of the entire race last time around as well on the penultimate one. Is Raffin going to have anything in his locker to try and close up on the back of Edgar Pons significantly enough to mount a charge? Really what he needs to be is absolutely on his rear fairing going in towards turn number 12 and stick with him through that complex, through that chicane to try and close up. But I think it's probably just going to come a little bit too little too late here, and you can see that gap indeed increasing as they go up the hill in towards turn number 12. So if Pons really, unless he has some kind of a shocker of a corner here, just the back end stepping out ever so slightly there, but managed to gather it up pretty well going through that corner, but no way through for Jesko Raffin. So unless he can force the number 57 of Pons to make a mistake, if Pons maybe runs wide anywhere in the next couple of moments, but other than that, I can't see him finding a way through. No way through there, and indeed the back straight as well. He's not going to be anywhere near close enough to be able to get the effects of the slipstream. And down the back straight into the final couple of corners from home for Mikel Pons. And you can see there as well, Jesko Raffin just having a bit of a look over his shoulder. Probably admitted defeat now, really going to settle for second best. It was a nice effort while it lasted. Unfortunately, just came a little bit too little too late for him. But it is an absolutely brilliant performance then for Edgar Pons. It's the double here at MotorLand Aragón. Edgar Pons on top once again here in Spain. A brilliant performance from him. Jesko Raffin finishing in second position. And again, Hector Garzo repeating the podium of race number 1. The top 3 exactly as it was in that first race. And we'll be hearing, of course, from Edgar Pons down in Parc Fermé very, very shortly. Great performance also from Marc Alcoba in 4th, Tommaso Marcon in 5th position, Mikel Pons in 6th, Xavier Cardelus in 7th. Then comes Alessandro Zacconi, rather, I should say, in 8th, Matthias Megley 9th, and Marcel Brenner inside your top 10. And despite the problems he had at the start of the race, B. Sikierski, the Polish rider, of course, made his debut this weekend for the Team Styler bike outfit, finished in 11th position. So that's very, very good to see for him, despite, of course, starting in the pit lane and having to make up that significant deficit from the rest of the field. Of course, 2 non-finishers from that second running of that second race. Of course, Mark Chiodo, we saw him at the side of the track earlier on. And we also saw Lucas Tulovic in the opening lap sending it down the road, sadly, with what looked to be some kind of a technical gremlin on board his bike, which unfortunately caused him to end up crashing out. You can see there Dean Basecki as well. He was a casualty in the first race, and likewise Alexander Anin as well. So both riders sadly not making the checkered flag and not even making the restart of that second race either. But this man here, Edgar Pons, well, he has been absolutely on top form here this weekend. Great to see him back at the sharp end of the grid. It really does make it a very interesting time to see what will happen over the course of the remainder of this 2018 season. See whether Pons can just sneak that deficit down to Jesko Raffin. The thing is, Raffin, of course, finishing second in both races there, taking that good points all home, is exactly what he really needs to do. He's still extending his championship advantage. Augusto Fernandez was the man who was closest to him coming into this weekend. Of course, Fernandez now racing in the World Championship as opposed to here in the CEV. So it does make it a little bit different. And of course, his nearest championship rival is nothing really for him to worry about now. So you can see the riders just coming down the 1 kilometre long back straight for the final time of asking. Jesko Raffin, the Swiss rider, a good performance from him, as we said. He'll be pleased with that one, I reckon. Very, very impressive performance from him. And in towards the final couple of corners. And into pit lane and Parc Fermé as well. Double celebrations there as well for Hector Garzo. 2 podiums on the trot on board that Tech 3 machine. What about 2019 rather as well? What about next year? Where are we going to see this man, Hector Garzo? Will he be stepping up to the World Championship? He's been linked with a couple of teams. Of course, let's not forget he substituted for Remy Gardner in the World Championship earlier on this year in Moto2. Will we see him on the grid next year? Only time will tell, but it is going to make it a very exciting prospect to see Hector Garzo racing in the World Championship. And if you look at the likes of Edgar Pons, of course, he's had a couple of years in that World Championship. It hasn't really worked out for him at all. So with a bit of luck, he can regroup and perhaps try and find another path to the top of the order. Edgar Pons, perhaps maybe look at something in World Supersport or maybe even World Superbike for 2019. Although spaces in there are very much far and few in between. Let's have a look then, shall we, at the final results from that race. Edgar Pons finishes on top ahead of Jesko Raffin and Hector Garzo to replicate the podium from race number 1. Mark Alcoba, Tommaso Marcon inside the top 5. Mikel Pons, Xavier Cardeluz, Alessandro Zacconi and Matthias Megle inside the top 10. Look at the plethora of Calixes in there as well. Marcel Brenner in 10th. Piotr Bisakierski, the Polish rider, in 11th position. Then Roman Fischer, the top stock 600 rider, beating Alessandro Zetti in race 2. Chandler Cooper, a couple of points on the board for the Aussie, ahead of Giacomo Lorenzon. And you got Felipe Le Gallo, the last rider on the lead lap. And you see a few non-finishes there. Lucas Tulovic not finishing. Mark Chiodo also not making the checkered flag due to some crashes on track, unfortunately for both riders. Of course, 12 races so far. 12 races over the course of this 2018 season. We've had 7 so far, so we're well over the halfway stage now. And it's all on the downhill run to the end of the season to see who will be crowned as the world champion. This time last year, of course, let's not forget we had...
So it's been another incredible victory in race 2, and we obviously had that red flag stoppage. They had to do that perfect start again. Got it done, another win. How do you feel?
Yeah, it felt really good. Maybe even better than the first one, because with the red flag I was a bit distracted. No, I did a very good lap in the first race, but then I was, I need to do it again. No, so yeah, it was really good. I was pushing hard with this heat. Was really, you are always on the limit, no, in the front, braking, sliding, and I tried to push, but I saw that Jesko was always the same distance, and I was like, I cannot make even a small simple mistake. No, so it was very hard from the mind and also for the weather, no, because it was much hotter than the other one. So even though it was shorter, it was hot. It was harder.
Y también en castellano.
Sí, muy contento, ¿no? de esta carrera. La verdad es que con la bandera roja nos ha fastidiado un poco porque creo que habíamos hecho una muy buena primera vuelta. Pero bueno, hemos conseguido volver a salir primeros, que era lo importante al ser una carrera tan corta. Y bueno, hemos intentado apretar al máximo. Veía que Jesco siempre estaba a la misma distancia. Quería apretar más, pero con los neumáticos y con esta color te la estabas jugando mucho todo el rato, ¿no? Frenando, inclinando, así que teníamos que ir con mucho cuidado. Pero bueno, muy contento. Muchas gracias al equipo y toda la gente que ha estado al lado mío empujándome, así que nada, hemos de seguir con esta línea, seguir trabajando y seguro que cosas buenas llegarán. Gracias.
Gracias, enhorabuena.
Some highlights then from race 2 of the Moto2 European Championship. And you can see how it all got a little bit frenetic in the opening stages of that first running of the race, and it was Edgar Pons who managed to get the first start and get the best opening lap against the rest of the field. However, going into the second lap is where it all sort of came undone for the rest of the field. As I'm sure we'll see in a few moments' time. The red flag came out following an incident. Meanwhile, this time, it was Edgar Pons who was still leading the way going into turn number 12, followed by Jeske Raffin and the number 14 of Hector Garzo. Number 70 here of Mark Alcoba having easily his best weekend of the season so far. Although Lukas Tulovic trying to give it as good as he got. Very exciting indeed. This, unfortunately, was Alexander Anin sending it down the road. The red flag came out. There was some oil on track, unfortunately, following that crash. So we had a restarted race of 10 laps. And then we can see exactly what happened. Going down in towards that first corner. Again, Edgar Pons leading the way. Lukas Tulovic getting the better of his teammate as well. So that was a very good start indeed from Tulovic. He was very pleased with that result, and quite rightly so. So down in towards the next corner though, however, and it all came undone for Tulovic, unfortunately, sending it down the road at turn 14. Disappointment for the German rider, who had good pace in the opening stages of that one. That left the two-way scrap out in front though for the race lead between Edgar Pons and Jeske Raffin. And of course Hector Garzo holding on to that net third position. Jeske Raffin really closing up in the latter stages of that race, having some very good pace behind the handlebars of his Swiss innovative Investors Calyx. Would he be able to have closed up though? Well, unfortunately, it wouldn't turn out to be. Very disappointing for him, but good for the number 57 of Edgar Pons, taking a double race victory for the AGR team. An absolutely emphatic performance for Spaniard and the Spanish team as well. On top here in race 2, on top in race 1. A perfect weekend all round, as well, of course, as that pole position. On to the podium then come your finishers, your top 3. The top stock 600 rider on the far right-hand side of your picture there as well. You can see Roman Fischer. Third place of Hector Garzo. Second place of Jeske Raffin. And on top as well, it is, of course, Edgar Pons. Shaking the hands. So the trophies then being presented. Roman Fischer, the top stock 600 rider in that race. First bit of silverware he's going to be taking home in the CEV Repsol. Good stuff also from this man here. Third place once again for Hector Garzo. Second place of Jeske Raffin. A wry smile from his face there, but he'd have been hoping for just a little bit more in that one. Wasn't to be, unfortunately, for the Swiss rider. Still, of course, on top in that championship. And then Edgar Pons, big smiles all round from the long-haired Spaniard. And now time then for that petrol check and, of course, the Spanish national anthem to play out here at MotorLand Aragón. Edgar Pons on top, and the podium here for race 2 of the Moto2 European Championship. spraying the champagne on the podium. Good stuff from your top three, well, your top four finishers on the podium there, you can see as well. And spraying that champagne as well. And there's a good chance, really, for the leathers to get coated because they're not going to be used for another couple of months as we enter our summer break here for the FIM CEV Repsol. Let's have a closer look at the championship standings in Moto2 then, shall we? And we can see that Jeske Raffin still is very much in command of the championship. 50 points ahead of Augusto Fernandez, 52 points in front of Edgar Pons. So undoubtedly that will probably be changing next time out in Jerez. You can see Hector Garzo there, quite a few points adrift in 4th position. A bit further down, it's a bit interesting between Dimas Eki and Lukas Tulovic. Those two separated by just a few points. Xavier Cardelus inside the top 10 there as well. Further down the order, you can see the likes of Corentin Perelaria, who of course is now competing in the Supersport World Championship. Sigrid Tongde as well as Roman Fischer, Alessandro Zetti, and Peter Bisakierski in 19th place ahead of Benny Solis, who isn't here for reasons that have not been disclosed to us this weekend. So hopefully we'll see, as we said, Benny out for before the end of the 2018 season. See Dennis Ayers, the last finisher in the point scorers. So then, a very exciting time in the Moto2 European Championship. We've got one more race left for you to come, and that is European Talent Cup Race 2 on the way very, very shortly.